So the City of Montreal today announced yet another plan, because I remember seeing one before this as well. But this one is a little different because the federal government is involved. And here's the deal. That Hippodrome site, right, the old Bluebonnet site, according to this new information, the new plan today, would have up to 20,000 new housing units, including 50% of those for non-market housing. But as good as this sounds, and let's remember this thing has now been in the works for at least the last 8 years, when the province finally said to the city, hey, we'll give it to you, give us $1, but please make sure that when you're going to develop or redevelop this site, that Cavendish Boulevard is included, because we need a north-south passage beyond just DeCarry, which is already heavy. Yeah, well, that's not apparently in this plan. So mayors, some suburban mayors today getting together, that it would be in St. Laurent, Alan D'Souza, Mitchell Brownstein and Côte St. Luc, and Peter Malouf and TMR to kind of react to this. Peter Malouf is on the line. Peter, great having you here. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Aaron, for having me on the show this
Peter,
afternoon.
let me begin by asking, I brought up the Cavendish thing. Is this really the main sticking point here for you?
I think it's an important sticking point, just not for just us suburban mayors, and there's many others that are affected by this, but for all industries impacted. It's an economic consideration. I mean, we applaud the initiative by the federal government, provincial government, in terms of putting into place infrastructure and providing for housing. There's no question about it. But imagine 20,000 housing units, if you think about it. Put 2 people per house. That's 40,000 people in an area with a diminished access and egress out of that area. Cavendish has always been an essential part of unblocking the north-south access of that area, because it's important to provide mobility, transport, security, and safety. Think about it, ambulances, fire trucks, etc. Access for employees to get from the West End up to where they work at CE Electronics or Ultra Communications or Rolls-Royce or many of the other industries where they can't get to. So it is an essential part of this. And it also opens up an access corridor for the Hippodrome as well. So it's just something that's a non-starter if it's not considered. This project for Cavendish, I'm sorry if I'm going on for a little bit longer, Aaron, was actually signed as an agreement in 1962.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it has been on the books forever. Obviously, the issue of Cavendish has been talked about forever as well. Look, I had Luca Dabois in the studio last week, and I asked specifically, right? He says he's not the same as necessarily Valerie Plante was on this. But when I asked about Cavendish specifically, the answer was, well, there's rail lines, and it would be very, very expensive, and it's not that easy. And of course, my reaction is, not that easy. We've been talking about this, as you say, forever. It can't be that out of the question to consider an overpass or an underpass to be able to get this done. Why do you think this is happening, Peter? Why are they resisting this?
I'm not sure why there is a resistance by the current Projet Montréal group, and all I can say is that I think that this is somewhat ideological. There seems to be a resistance to respecting an agreement that was done in 2017 between the Quebec government and Montreal, which condition stated very specifically that on the condition we cede you the land at the Hippodrome for $1, you will have to open up access and make the connection between Cavendish north and south. For some reason, Montreal is not respecting that. I think this is becoming somewhat of an election issue to a certain degree, because I think people need to vote for any politician or political party that really wants to support something like this. It's more than just the access for cars and vehicles, and it's not going to increase traffic. When you think about it, when you have mobility transport in this area there, you'll be able to get people from that west end part of the city to the north end part of the city and vice versa, and we could use high-speed buses and things like that can access it. Secondly, I've already spoken we have what's known as an Alliance Cavendish, which is formed of about 14 major developers in Montreal. And I've already contacted a few of them who have a serious interest in actually building a bridge, 850 meters, like they're building a bridge with accelerated bridge construction in Toronto on the Gardiner Expressway, and they're ready to build it at no cost to the government or any government. Think about that. That's quite amazing. So there are opportunities to do this. There is a willingness by the private sector to do this. It's good for the environment. It's good for urban planning. And it's a great move to improve the quality of life of individuals having to use those access roads to get around Montreal. It's quite amazing.
By the way, just so people understand, I know that area of the city reasonably well. If you're going to take the Hippodrome site and develop it and put in those 20,000 units eventually, right? Right now, the only access north-south to get into that would be along DeCarry Boulevard. You'd have to get off the DeCarry Expressway or be on the service road. That area is already super congested. And for the life of me, I do not understand why, especially if you're going to put more people in there, you would not want to open up another access route. It doesn't make any sense.
I totally agree with you, and that's why we issued a press release today with the other mayors, Mitch Brownstein and Alan De Sousa. And as a matter of fact, Soraya Martinez-Ferreira, who's a leader of Ensemble Montréal, is also supporting this. As she stated, it's a backbone for housing, transit, and sustainable growth in Montreal's West End, and we need that. It's actually critical. There's a densification that occurs there, but you can't expect people who are going to live in such densification to be able to get around. They're going to have access to healthcare, schools. They're going to have security in the area. I mean, what are people going to do? It's not just one metro station, Namur de la Savane, that's going to service all of this traffic. Forget it. And we all know, and everybody knows, the number of vehicles that are there per day on the Décarie Expressway and Décarie service roads. It's become impossible. It is the most trafficked area, as stated by Transport Quebec, in Canada.
I will point out something you just said for people who maybe didn't catch that. You have a group of people in business who will be willing apparently to take the cost, whatever that would be, however hundreds of millions it might come to, and say, we'll do this for you. We'll go ahead and put a bridge up there so the city can't even use not having money as an excuse. Is that right?
Correct. That is correct. That is correct.
That makes even less sense then. If the city is going to argue that this would be too expensive a project, and they're willing, this is kind of like Andrew Lutfi paying for that bridge over to Décarie on his own, right, to make it accessible. So you have someone else or a group of individuals or business owners willing to do the same. Is the issue then CN and CP, or is that solvable?
No, that is very solvable with CNCP because it doesn't cross over an essential part of CNCP tracks. So it's very solvable. And, the private sector obviously going to do it, not because, for philanthropic purposes. Clearly, there has to be a profit motive behind it. However, just like you have highways 25, highway 407 in Ontario, highway 30 in Quebec, and 25 in Quebec, I think it'll be paid for, vehicle traffic, but for buses and bicycles and pedestrians, it'll be free access back and forth. It is all doable, and it makes sense when you think about this, taking it off of the backs of all taxpayers and saying, okay, the private sector can do this. It opens up the area. It's good for the economy. It's good for the environment, and it's good for people's quality of life. It's great for employment. It's great for the economy. It's unbelievable. It's a win-win situation all around.
The city has heard this. The city knows this, yet they go ahead and make this announcement today, which includes about $300 million from the federal government to begin infrastructure work. Where does it go from here, Peter, as far as you understand?
As far as we understand, listen, we're going into an election period, so I have no idea how this is going to play out. We are 1 month away from November, 6 weeks away, 7 weeks away from November 2nd, and I think there has to be more people coming out about this, and I believe there will be, not just from ourselves, but I think from other candidates and officials that want to get elected in this coming election to really state their position. This is a really critical part, not only from those people who are elected officials or want to be elected officials, but also from the private sector. It is essential from the private sector that this be done. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. Think about it. It'll reduce the amount of traffic, believe it or not, with Cavendish. For all the people that get stuck coming around from the West End to try and come down to Décarie and go up, for example, to the Royal Mount area or to the airport, they'll have a direct access road right through this Cavendish Bridge. It opens up so much room, and people will then probably take more public transport to get from point A to point B because it'll be quicker, it'll be faster, it'll be much more, efficient for anybody wanting to get to any other destination that they want to get to from north and south in the West End.
So, of course, the issue as you describe it is it makes far too much sense, which is always a problem for governments. And let me just understand. So it's pure coincidence, Peter, right, that this is announced 5-6 weeks before a municipal election, right? Of course.
Yes. Well, I guess so.
Pure coincidence.
We were quite surprised by it when we found out. I had found out on Saturday.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.
This announcement was going to come out. Yeah.
Listen, I hope, if this does become an election issue, and it's interesting, I don't think we thought at the beginning of the campaign perhaps it might, but I think clearly now it will, given that, Soraya Martinez-Ferreira is sort of on board with you, and you have Luc Rabouin on basically the same side that Projet has always been on. This is going to be very interesting going forward. Peter, appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Take good care. You too. Peter Malouf, he's the mayor of TMR, one of the three mayors that got together today to let the city know, got to do this plan the way it was supposed to be done, which includes opening Cavendish. And again, just that little sort of chestnut he threw in there. If the city complains that this is about money and it doesn't have the money, private business investment would get involved here and put up a bridge at no cost to the city. So why wouldn't you do it? What else is really going on here?